There are villages where death does not knock before entering. It simply sits at the table and waits. Umueze was one such village. But what made Umueze truly terrifying was not the sickness that crawled through every household. It was not the sorrow that hung in the air like smoke after a fire. It was the disappearances. Every 3 days, one person would vanish. No body, no blood, no trace, just an empty mat where a living soul once slept. The people of Umueze had forgotten what it meant to smile. They slept with one eye open, not because they feared the night, but because they feared they might not wake at all. It was into this cursed village that a traveler wandered one evening, a priest named Abuchi. He was not a tall man. He was not a strong man. He walked with a hunch on his back that bent him forward like a man forever bowing to the earth. But do not be deceived by his frame. Abuchi carried something far greater than strength. He carried the ear of the gods. When Abuchi spoke, his words did not come from his mouth alone. They came from a place beyond this world. He had only meant to rest for the night before continuing his journey. But the moment he stepped into Umueze, something cold wrapped around his spirit. The air was wrong. The silence was too heavy. Even the trees seemed to lean away from the village, as though they wanted no part of what was happening here. A young man named Emeka was the first to meet him. Emeka's eyes told the story before his mouth could. Sunken, tired, afraid. He told Abuchi everything: the death, the disease, the disappearances. And Abuchi listened with the stillness of a man who had heard the gods whisper darker things. Emeka took Abuchi to the village head. The old king looked at this hunchbacked stranger and saw not a cripple, but a lifeline. Abuchi spoke plainly. He said, "Give me 7 days. I will enter your evil forest. I will speak to the gods. And on the 7th day, I will return with your answer." The king agreed without hesitation. What choice did he have? His people were dying. And so Abuchi walked into the evil forest, a place where no sane man goes willingly. What happened to him over those 6 days would have broken most men. But Abuchi was no ordinary man. On the first day, a creature appeared before him. It had no shape that the human mind could hold. It shifted and twisted like smoke given life. And it spoke. "Do not help them," it said. Abuchi asked why. The creature gave no reason. He simply repeated his warning and dissolved into the shadows. On the second night, Abuchi fell into a dream. But this was no ordinary dream. He saw himself walking through the land of the dead, weeping bitterly. In the dream, he was a man drowning in regret for ignoring the warning he had received on the first day. He woke drenched in sweat, his heart pounding like a war drum. On the third day, a tree spoke to him. Its voice was deep and ancient, like the earth itself had opened its mouth. It told him of the cruelty of the people of Umueze, how they had destroyed sacred trees, how they had taken from the land without respect or gratitude. The tree's voice trembled with centuries of pain. On the fourth day, a figure emerged from the forest mist, tall as 3 men standing on each other's shoulders, with the head of a goat and the feet of a sheep. This giant looked down at Abuchi and said, "Leave them to their fate." Still, no reason was given, only a command. On the 5th night, Abuchi saw a ghost. But this ghost stopped his heart. It wore the face of his mother. She came to him softly, the way she used to when he was a child, and she said words that would echo in his mind for the rest of his short life. "My son, when you tell them the answer, leave immediately. Do not stay until the next day. If you remain, you will regret it for all of eternity." Then she was gone. On the 6th day, his final night in the forest, Abuchi slept, and in his sleep, a dream came, and in that dream, a letter appeared before his eyes. On it was written the solution to the suffering of Umueze. When Abuchi read those words, his blood turned cold. He understood now. He understood why every spirit, every creature, every warning had told him to walk away. But Abuchi was a priest. He had given his word. And so, on the seventh day, he walked out of that forest, carrying an answer he wished he had never found. The village erupted when they saw him. For the first time in what felt like years, there was joy in Umueze. People sang. People clapped. Children ran beside him as though he were a returning king. Abuchi walked through them all in silence. He stood before the king and his chiefs and spoke the words written in his dream. And then the room went still. The solution to save Umueze was to bury a hunchback man alive. The king stared at Abuchi. The chiefs exchanged glances. Nobody spoke. Abuchi had given them their answer. His work was done, but he did not leave. He should have left. His mother had begged him to leave. By evening, the solution had spread through the village like wildfire. In small gatherings, in hushed tones, in dark corners, the people of Umueze began to whisper the same terrible thought. Where would they find a hunchback? And then, one by one, their eyes turned to the man who had saved them. The next morning, the king gave the order. His guards seized Abuchi, the very man who had spent 6 days in a cursed forest to rescue them. Abuchi screamed. He fought. He cursed. He could not believe what was happening. The people he had sacrificed everything for had chosen him as the sacrifice. They threw him into a cell. And there, in the darkness, every warning came flooding back. The creature with no shape. The dream of the land of the dead. The ancient tree. The giant with the goat's head. And his mother. His dear, departed mother, who had told him to run. He had ignored them all, and now he would pay the price. On a bright Friday morning, every soul in Umueze gathered at the village square. In the center, a deep hole had been dug, deep enough to swallow a man whole. They brought Abuchi out in chains. His eyes were red. His spirit was broken. But as they lowered him into that hole, something shifted in him. The grief left his face, and in its place came something far more dangerous: fury. As the dirt began to cover his body, Abuchi lifted his voice one final time. And this time, he did not speak with the softness of a priest. He spoke with the thunder of a man who had been betrayed by those he tried to save. Hear me, people of Umueze. You have buried the man who came to save you. So now hear this. From this day until the end of days, any son or daughter of Umueze who dares to sleep in another village will not live to see the morning. You will be prisoners of this land forever. And every night you lay your heads down, you will remember the priest you buried alive. The last thing the villagers saw before the earth swallowed him was his eyes, wide open, unblinking, burning with a curse that would outlive them all. And so it was. The curse of Abuchi took hold. The sickness left. The disappearances stopped. But the people of Umueze discovered they had traded one prison for another. No man, woman, or child of that village could ever sleep beyond its borders. Those who tried never woke up. To this day, the people of Umueze remain in their village. They do not travel. They do not wander. And when night falls, they remember the hunchbacked priest who walked into their village to save them, and whom they buried alive for his trouble. Some curses are born from evil, but the worst curses are born from betrayal.